Hi guys, in a previous video we showed you how we made these two 26 DP gears for my Harrison milling machine for the fine feed on the table, and I'm now at the point where I need to cut two 4mm Keyways in the gears, and of course I don't have a broach. In fact, I don't have the right size broach or anything like it. I was relying on a friend of mine to cut the Keyways for me because he told me that he had a broach the right size, and at the end of the day it turned out that his smallest broach is too big for these gears. So after a lot of soul searching and thinking about it, I've decided to make a broach out of this piece of 8mm gauge plate. I've had a look on the net, and I can only on YouTube, and I can find one reference where somebody else has thought about making a broach, but there's no detail other than the idea, which is what I've decided to follow. This is a half-inch hole, so my my broach is going to have to be about 11 mils wide in order to get it through the hole the first time. So the plan is to cut myself a blank about 11 mils wide, and I'm going to drill a series of holes, 6mm holes, the length of the blank, or about 3/4 of the length of the blank, but the holes will be not parallel to the edge, but on a slight slope in a downwards direction. So I haven't actually drawn that very well, so I'll start again. I'm going to exaggerate this for the drawing, but this hole is going to be much closer to the edge than that hole. So we'll have a series of holes that progressively slope downwards as we get towards that end. The difference between that hole and that hole is going to be 1mm, or 39 thou. The plan then is to mill those holes almost in half, not quite, just slightly above the halfway line. So we then mill through the blank on about that line there, and you can probably see where this is going already. So we can mill that edge off, and again I've exaggerated for the purposes of the drawing how much we're milling off. So we end up with essentially what is the gullet of each of the teeth. So we're going to end up with that. Then I will either cut with a hacksaw and mill it, or mill from the point about 1/2 millimetre back from that edge to the bottom of the previous tooth. This is all fairly simple milling, so we will end up with something that looks like that. Hopefully better than this, but essentially that tooth form. I need to leave a small flat here, so if I draw that in a larger form, we'll end up with a tooth a bit like that. I'm going to have to relieve each tooth, probably by hand or with a Dremel or whatever, this portion here, which I'm guessing is going to be about 1/2 millimetre wide. So we've now got, and this is the centre of our blank, so we've now got the teeth we need. I haven't worked out the pitch yet, but I figure that the pitch will have to be such that I'll have at least two teeth in contact with the workpiece at any point, so that's easy to work out. And this last tooth will be 39 thou higher than the first teeth, and if I have, say, 6 teeth or 7 or 8 teeth in my broach, then of course each tooth will be cutting 3 or 4 or 5 thou of the gear. Now the bit that I wrestled with was how do I how do I hold and how do I mill my blank on the milling machine and get these angles right. And it came to me in a flash at about 4 o'clock in the morning. So if that's the table of my milling machine, and that's one of the slots in the table, I'm going to mount a button here, about a 50mm button, on the mill. So that's looking down on the table of the mill. So there's the next groove in the mill table, and I'll mount these buttons slightly off centre so that this one is 1mm higher than this one, and I'll make this distance a known and fixed distance, and that'll be about 3/4 of the length of my, or that'll be the length of the cutting edge of my broach. So then I've got that angle fixed. I can mount my blank up against the buttons, and of course the blank will be tilted at the appropriate angle, that 39th thou angle that I wanted, and then so I'll have my pen needs to be discarded. I'll try this one. So say that's my blank. So when I and the blank is at an angle to the table of the mill, so that when I use the mill to drill the holes, then the holes will be at the right angle. I can then mill at the same angle, and my teeth will be at the correct angle because they'll be held against the buttons. Now this blank is 8mm thick, and I'm looking for a 2mm cutter, so my finished broach in profile is going to look something like that. So I'm going to have to take 2mm off here and 2mm off there, in order to get my teeth the right thickness. And I can do that on the same buttons, because I can mount my blank up against the buttons, mill my 2mm off one side with a rotary cutter, then take the blank off, mount the blank on the other side of the buttons, and mill the other side. So I can do all my cutting with one reference. So that's the plan. Probably not all that clear, but we'll go and do it. So the first job will be to cut my section 11mm wide, mount the buttons, mount this up against the buttons, draw the length of 6mm holes, and then mill both sides. So let's go and have a go.